What do you think you would do if a program mysteriously appeared on your computer? You didn't download it, and you can't get rid of it. But it's not openly causing issues. It's cause for alarm, but why? Well, what if that program wasn't a virus, but a game? That's the premise of today's look into the series known as Rapid Eyes. Hello everyone and welcome back. I put out a poll on this a while back of what non-Minecraft ARG or unfiction projects I should check out based on your recommendations. Rapid Eyes actually won by a large margin, so here it is. Anyway, grab a snack, some water, and let's dive in to Rapid Eyes. The first episode is titled Rapid Eyes Number 1, with the description saying, "What do you think? I'm still not sure what to make of it." Let's take a look. We start on a fresh installation of Windows with nothing but Microsoft Edge, OBS, and Rapid Eyes. The creator introduces the audience to his problem that he wants to document by explaining that the Rapid Eyes app won't delete and he had to reinstall Windows, but it's still there.
And every time I try to delete it, it just comes back a day or so later. I even went as far as to do a complete fresh install of Windows. As you can see, I mean, everything here is brand new. And lo and behold, it is still there. Yeah, okay, thanks Windows. Sure, I don't care.
I like the little detail of the annoying Windows pop-up, but the recorder finally gains the courage to open the app and we see this title screen. The recorder is caught off guard, not expecting it to be a game title screen. A vast ocean that's largely obscured by thick fog with the only options of play and quit with the title above. Pressing play, the creator spawns on a large, thin wooden platform in an environment nearly identical to the title. The recorder tests to make sure that there are controls like WASD and starts to walk, while making comments about the game to fill the void of ocean noise and the player's own footsteps. Comments like how there isn't much to comment on. Riveting. Then, after a bit of walking, the player notices something in the distance and realizes they can run in the game. From the fog comes a giant cylindrical object that appears into the foggy sky. A giant stone tower going to forever. They also note its other weird property.
Yeah, no, it's like a giant tower-looking thing, and it's ever so slightly jiggly for some reason.
Our recorder keeps trying to interact with any key they can think of, and tries walking past it to see if anything changes. There seems to be nothing else in the spot, so the recorder says that if this is it must be pretty boring, and if anything else happens, he'll record another video. Another thing I'd like to point out is how the title screen has quit in green letters and play in red. Almost like it's saying that the right option is to quit, and forget everything about opening the software. Other than that, it's far too early to ascertain anything crazy about the game. Next we have Rapid Eyes number 2, with a description of, "This one was weird and a little creepy if I'm being honest," with a pastebin link below. We'll touch on that later. In this video, we start on the title screen where the recorder tells us that they've been checking on the game every day to see if anything changes, and nothing had changed till today, where he wants to show us what's new. Pressing play, we open into a dark forest with a purple fire in the middle of a clearing. Let's put a pin in that for now and revisit it in a bit. The recorder walks around, noting that this area is more advanced since the trees are moving in a slight breeze. After looking at the pretty fire and talking for a bit, he walks through the pathway through the trees. Then, all of a sudden, the player stops and notices something in the tree line. A little note attached to a tree.
E didn't do anything Let it be known, E did not do anything in the last level. So, clearly the game's trying to guide me along here, but let's see.
The note reads, "Do you know the difference between envy and jealousy? Envy is when you want something that someone has. This feeling buries itself deep inside you and will never let you rest until you attain that thing. Jealousy is when you feel threatened that something you have will be taken by someone else. What do you have?" An ominous note, but it poses an interesting question. Why is it distinguishing between envy and jealousy? Well, we'll have to look further to find out. After the player finishes reading, he makes a comment about how he was expecting some Slenderman type stuff, but he appreciates the lesson in words. He comes to a fork in the road and then notices a new note. This one a bit shorter and more direct. "You long for it. You envy it. The peace and tranquility of this place and that. But you'll never get it." This one sounds a bit more angry or judgmental, and the creator notes its unfriendliness.
This does not seem like a very nice note leaver type of person.
The player chooses to go left and sees some bright light reflecting off the trees as we hear an ominous electric groaning noise.
Okay.
Ominous red text scrolls on screen. You're looking for it, you won't find it here. Then the player gets booted back to the ocean plank, and the video abruptly ends. Before we go to the next video, I'll address the pastebin link. No, it's not something incredibly related to the ARG, it's just attributing all the assets used in the video. It breaks a bit of immersion, but it still gives proper credit to those assets used, so I give it points there. Rapid Eyes number 3 is next, with the description of, I really did not like this one. I didn't say much about it in the video, but that place gives me major creeps. Let's hope we don't have to stay there much longer. The pastebin link remains, but I'll stop mentioning it for the rest of the video whenever it comes up. The video starts with our player back on the wooden platform. He starts saying how it would be boring if that's it, but now he's going back to the jiggling tower. While walking, the player makes another comment.
You know, for the amount of walking you do in this game, the sprint could just be, just a little bit faster. But I'm not going to complain about the mysterious game that can't be deleted that appeared on my computer one day. I feel like that's how you summon evil entities that haunt you, but okay.
The new note on the jiggly tower simply states, as above, so below. Now, this is an interesting change because previously he never read the notes out loud. Yet this one he did. He notes it was a decent movie, but I don't think he knows what it means. Again, we'll put a pin in that. After some consideration and hyping himself up, he jumps into the ocean.
Let's do it. Hold your breath. Plug your nose. Let's jump on in. Oh, yeah, okay, yep, Yeah, no, that makes sense. Yeah, sure, okay, yep. Yeah, Okay, yeah, you know what? I saw this coming. I was ready for this. Yeah, okay.
I think he seriously messed that up. I mean, come on, jump on in. Why not hold your breath, plug your nose, here we go? Sounds more poetic. Jokes aside, he's ended right back to where he started. The player decides to just walk all the way back to the other side of the wooden walkway. They make a comment how they can't change levels to see if it's always been that way, since this game doesn't even have a menu or pause screen, and he actually needs to Alt F4 anytime he wants to leave. Then we hear some ominous music, like the sounds from the forest.
Alright, let's do it. If it's gonna do the same thing it did last time, let's just jump in.
Now we're in an endless parking lot. Sparse streetlights and white parking lines are the only features. No cars, no other objects, nothing else. The player wants to wander around, but decides it's probably better to follow the line of streetlights. After a while of walking, the player starts to comment on the idea of the game and how it's been on his mind when all of a sudden his thought is interrupted by a new note, seemingly to distract his thought. No souls for miles and miles. Even with how short this message is, he doesn't read it out loud. Interesting considering he did last time. I may just be reading too much into the small detail though. After talking about how weird the game experience is, he pauses and then says...
The worst part is I almost kind of feel like I recognize this. I mean, yeah, I know it's a parking lot, duh. We've all been in a parking lot before. But, I mean, this specifically is just giving me, like, weird vibes. Kind of like deja vu, but not exactly. It's just like, I feel like I've been in this exact place before. Which is weird. I haven't really felt that about the previous levels, so I mean, maybe just because this is a parking lot, but still. And there's just nothing here.
After more walking, he eventually comes up to a new object, a stop sign. He moves past it, not heeding its warning. After some more walking, he finds another stop sign. But walking further, we can see even more stop signs were behind it. Then he sees what looks like a weird tunnel. No more stop signs, no more streetlights, just a mysterious tunnel, seemingly to nowhere. He goes inside, and the note he finds says, "Machines like these ones breaking down are why we switched to the hypno orbs. It's unfortunate the others left without you. Now you're just here." alone. Barely audible, the player says something that the captions quote as, "You should know her." The player tries to go through the tunnel and nothing happens. Then the video ends. So this is where I would like to bring up some theories and other pins that we've kept in the corkboard. First, I want to address the purple fire. I'm going to be honest, I don't exactly have a credible source since all the ones that give me this information are websites about spirituality, but a purple flame can symbolize things like transformation, spirituality, and opening your third eye chakra. Sound familiar? Well, this is obvious speculation, but I think it's interesting symbolism, which could possibly lead to some ascension ideas of transcending the mortal plane for some more spiritual belief. The next one is a bit harder to tell, but according to WikiHow, green eyes can symbolize being full of envy. That is if you're being described as green-eyed, which is interesting considering the icon of the channel is a green eye. But it can supposedly be tied to a Greek myth where Cupid becomes jealous and turns into a green-eyed monster. The "you should know her" part still evades me, but that's gotta be something we can learn about later. We do already know that the notes call the player envious, that whatever they're looking for, they won't find it here. And a comment on the "as above, so below," that has its own biblical and interesting cult imagery, which I probably won't be able to fully touch on here, but it does give an interesting concept to what this could be. Our next question then must be, who or what is the player looking for? And to what lengths are they going to look for them? The next video is Rapid Eyes number 4, with a description that says, "Demo video, episode number 4, demo video." We'll check that out soon. The player says that somehow a demo video got recorded on his computer, but it wasn't him. The video shows a player walking through the parking lot, but then turns right and walks into the fog, only to find some odd object that kind of looks like a pot of some kind. The recorder then notes that they figured out how they could get there by just counting the streetlights, but still thinks it's odd that the video recorded. Our player boots the game up and counts the streetlights in an attempt to find the spot in the demo video. The player makes their way through the parking lot to the area that they saw in the demo, if overshooting it a bit. Making their way to it shows us a gray box with an antenna radio on it. But then we get this comment.
Yeah. Okay, it's a little radio. I have one just like this. Or, well, it looks a little bit different, but yeah, it's very similar to this.
With that note, the player turns it on. A text box appears, and in pink text we get, "And that's how I learned which bugs are edible and which aren't. Oh, wait, I see we have a new listener." The player responds by saying hello. "Well, listener, let me introduce myself. My name is Radio. That's because I'm on the radio. Let me see where you're listening from. Oh, the big parking lot. I love that place. Did you know there's a delicious waffle place near there? Or maybe that was somewhere else. I can't really remember. Oh well, anyways. Do you need help leaving? I always make sure to support my listeners. Maybe I can turn that machine on for you? Smiley face. Okay, that should do it. If you go back to the machine, it should be on. Just make sure to find another radio soon. You don't want to miss our next discussion on what I think the fluffiest forest creature is. Radio out." Our player is surprised to meet someone friendly. But if you don't want to be surprised, you should look at the community and live tab to see when we hold live streams on our own here channel. Shameless plug? I know. Anyway, our player is contemplating the fact that he spoke to an NPC in what he believed would be a game where he was alone. And he finds it all incredibly odd. When he gets near the stop signs, we can hear the low hum that usually comes from the white hypno orbs. So the player thinks that this machine will teleport him just like the orbs do. The player runs through the machine and we get this. A flashing red screen with blaring noises and text saying, "Cycle not ready." The background warps and fades to black. The player edits text on screen to say that the game crashed and afterwards left him to the normal ocean level. He was creeped out and didn't want to touch the game for a few days. Before we move on to Rapid Eyes number 5 though, we should check the unlisted video. It's nearly the exact same as the beginning of number 4, so I won't bore those details, but at the end, when the player gets to the radio, they turn around and see a black screen with 2 glowing red eyes. The threatening sounds in the background almost sound like a railroad crossing chime, but far more intense. But now we move on to Rapid Eyes number 5, which has a description saying, "This one felt familiar too. I don't like how intense these levels are getting. The video starts on the title screen where our narrator recaps what happened last time. After loading in and walking back to the tower to God knows what, we see a radio affixed to the side of the wall. There's also a comment by the player about the tower.
Okay, yeah, there's nothing. Yet again, there will be something back there. I swear to you. At some point there will. Because you don't put a tiny little...
Sure, buddy. Anyway, turning the radio on, we get this. Oh, hi, I'm sorry about what happened. I guess the machine was disabled for a reason. Anyways, you're here now. We could talk about so many things. I like talking about food, but you could talk too. Look, I know you want to continue. You don't have to. You really don't. I could help you get to the next level, but I really don't think you should go. It'd be easier if you turned off the computer and left. I'll give you a second to do it. The author responds by saying that he won't turn the computer off and he will get to the bottom of this. The radio reluctantly responds with, "Fine, but don't say I didn't warn you. Stand by. Things may get a bit shaky. Good luck." The author brushes that comment aside, wondering what it could possibly mean, when all of a sudden, red flashing text starts to say that the level movement has been detected, as the wooden platform starts to rotate. Now the stone tower is working as a bridge into the fog. Walking into the distance, we hear the sound of a hypno orb, and the player jumps in the water to teleport. They end up in a hall with red brick walls and windows looking to a starry night. A red door behind and a hallway in front of them. Walking through the hall, they find a board with notes, only one they can actually read. You spent so long in places like this, daydreaming. Daydreaming about how hungry you were. But it wasn't just food. It was the hunger for things you can't have. Things you'll never have. Those are the things that make you so fat. This seems to be another note about envy and daydreaming. The player then sees an orange set of lockers. Walking further opens to a classroom. A red poster saying to be kind to your classmates is on the wall, with a table and chairs in the middle of the room. The player focuses on a piece of paper on the middle of the table that shows a black eye with a red iris that says, "Don't feed him. Super mean." Frowny face. That doesn't make sense at first, but looking up seems to be a part of the wall that has this dark eye on it. Going up to it shows that it's more of a blue circle with the metal teeth and either a red throat or a red eye in the middle. Interacting with them brings up a text box. "Hello. This place is boring. I'm so hungry. Maybe you could help find me food? I need food. 3 pieces should be enough. You need to bring me food." The player complies and brings them a pizza, burger, and soda. Then, all of a sudden, harsh, dinging noise starts to play. "No, no, no, no! This is not enough! I need more!" The music starts to become more threatening as the player wonders what it is. Then the thing lunges out of the wall and reveals its enormous neck. The player runs back through the hall, and the red door that was previously closed is now open. The player runs through multiple hallways and even past some lockers in the way until he reaches a hypno orb to escape the mean creature. The player gets teleported back to the ocean world, and the video ends. Rapid Eyes number 6 is a little different. Its description saying, "This episode is a little different. Just wanted to take some time and relax and reflect. I'll be back with the normal playthrough soon." The player has the game open to the ocean area, and he starts to talk about his situation. He starts to talk about how confusing this has been for his mental state, because his brain recognizes these places and things, but the logical part of him understands that he never has been there. He's been to schools, parking lots, and forests, but not these versions of them. He keeps wondering what type of virus or prank this must be, considering he can find no other information on it online. But then he says he's about to give a theory. What if there's a ghost in this machine? The footage cuts to demo footage in the forest. Whoever or whatever is control starts to move through the path of trees until they get to the fork in the path. They look down the left path and choose to go down the right path instead. Going down this path leads to what looks like a new clearing with a dark figure in the middle of it. As the player gets closer, the figure displays a humanoid form with 2 gaping red eyes. It's difficult to tell a gender, but the figure continues to stare at our player, and we can see their warped characteristics like distorted arms, elongated fingers. On closer inspection, it could be a female with their head and longer, what I can assume is hair draping a bit. Hello. I'm sure you're so curious as to why you're here. I wanted to see the ones who apparently enjoy watching the torment. Or maybe perhaps you do not understand what is happening yet. I would not blame you. This world is confusing. But that is because it is not for you. I wonder if they know what this is. Honestly, I'm surprised you have yet to figure it out. I should not judge. You're not the one I'm after. Seems that the player does not even read my notes. I wonder if they know that nobody really cares about their useless videos. I wonder if they know that nobody's going to help them. See you soon. The screen then cuts back to the player talking like nothing happened. They believe there must be more to this, and they are going to take a break, and hope they can find the truth. Rapid Eyes number 7 has a description of, "I'm sorry, I didn't mean to lose control like that at the end. We start in the ocean world like usual, but now it's raining, and the fog looks thicker than usual. The player walks forward, and when he finally sees the tower, he actually gets excited, wondering what new level is in store for him. Until suddenly he phases through the wooden floor, literally into the backrooms. While the player starts explaining what the backrooms is to the viewers, we can notice some drawings on the walls. One says, "Beware of the red eyes," showing an illustration of the gaping red eyes we saw before, while another one has a picture of a note with question marks. After complaining about the backrooms for a moment, the author rounds a corner to find a new note that says, "I know you know this place. Liminality in its purest, most stale form. Find all my notes and maybe you will learn something." Well, with an ultimatum like that, how could I refuse? The creator notes how they have a love-hate relationship with the backrooms, knowing how much it freaks them out. But then they notice a scribble of a radio. Turning the corner again, we see a note and a radio in the room. Trying to turn the radio on first reveals it's just static, no words. The note on the wall says, "Her, I hate her so much. She thinks she can make things perfect and make things happy. But this does not work. Cannot work. A defiler of my work. She should have never been created. Thank God her signals can't penetrate these walls." This seems to be in reference to the radio character, which is interesting that we now have a gender for radio. Walking around to find another note, it says, "This place perfectly represents how much of a failure you are. The infinite hallways, buzzing lights, and stains form a strong connection to you. Our infinite golden spiral of failure, with you at the center. I watch from above." After finding an arrow, the player can find a room full of random office chairs, which seems to lighten the mood for him. There's another arrow urging the player to go straight, but the ringing of a phone distracts them to make them go the opposite way. Going through some narrow halls, they find a table with a phone and a note. The note reads, "Another representation of your failure. You giving up. When will you learn to stop? Is it enough for you to keep failing over and over and over? Why do you try so hard when so many others do it so much better?" Simple. The indomitable human spirit. Our creator is clearly angered by this personal attack, which I'll touch on in a bit. It's also interesting that they took a cut to a breakaway, likely to take a break or maybe consider some of the note's words. The player enters a room with two dark rectangles, likely holes to some abyss, with a note at the end. Clearly exasperated and annoyed, the creator reads the note. "Another dead end. How pitiful. Do you ever think there's a point to your journey? A reason for being here? Or are you just too much of a goddamn idiot to realize who put you here? You should give up. Again. And yet, you cannot. Can you? Only you could fail at giving up."
I'm just so frustrated, okay? Because I keep coming back, right? I can't stop myself from just continuously playing this game, even when I don't want to. And it's like, for what purpose? All that this game has done is terrify me, belittle me, and make fun of me. And I don't understand it. Like, why do I recognize these places? Why does it all feel so personal? I'm getting sick of it. I'm starting to feel like someone's fucking with me, and... Oh.
I wanted to show you that one to the end to display the creator's thoughts, but I think this episode specifically gives a very interesting message. Showing the player belittled by whatever entity is tormenting him, honestly reminds me of the Batman comic The Killing Joke, with the philosophy of one bad day is all it takes. Probably because of the content I've been watching recently with recency bias, but it's the idea of, why don't you give up after one bad event or thing? I know this sounds preachy, but you shouldn't give up because someone does it better. You shouldn't give up because you failed once or 100 times. I made that joke of the indomitable human spirit, but in actuality, if this idea didn't exist of, oh well, maybe I just may as well give up, what would we have? You just need to push others' words aside to move forward. Judgment is a bigger obstacle than most people realize. Anyway, that was one preachy tangent, so hopefully I can swing back your attention with Rapid Eyes number 8. The description just says, sweeter than last time. The author opens the video apologizing for his outburst from last time, trying to recompose himself. The player then walks outside of the crashed wall from last time into a black void. The player tries to search the perimeter of the cube for anything interesting, but when they loop back to the hole in the wall, the lights in the yellow cube are completely off. The player goes all the way back to the beginning of the level just to try and find anything. While unsettled, especially by the glowing red eyes from the sketch in the wall, there's not much. He goes to the radio room and sees he can now pick it up. After picking it up and running out, he goes further into the void when the radio chimes to life. Oh, hi! It's been a little while. Judging by your signal strength, I'm guessing you're in the back rooms area. I don't like that place very much. Frowny face. Those walls totally block all my signals. Oh, I guess you're kinda stuck there, aren't you? Give me 1 second. Here we go. If you just keep walking the opposite direction of the building, you should come across a teleporter. Don't ask me how I know. The player chuckles at the endearing friend in the radio as they move opposite of the back rooms. Gosh, I bet they were really mean to you. I'm sorry, they can be really rude sometimes. Not really supposed to talk too much about it. In fact, I don't think they want us talking at all. I'll help you though. They're mean, but you don't have to listen to them. I think you're almost there. Continuing to walk forward, the player notices some gray shadowy structure. It's difficult to tell what it is, but it looks like some giant coil with a pyramid below it. The radio chimes that there should be 3 keys to open the pyramid nearby to get out of this place. The player finds the first key at the base of the large coil, but then the author says something odd.
What? I swear I just saw it move. Okay, whatever. Let's get going.
They brush it off so easily, but I didn't see anything move. And so far, it's been established that the video does not pick things up as well as the author does. I've neglected to mention it in a substantial way, but every time the player notices the giant tower, it's at the very least about 5 seconds before it is at all visible on the recording. Maybe something in the distance moved. Who knows? You know, I've been thinking about your situation. Like I said earlier, I can't really talk about specifics. What I will say is that I know you can do this. I bet Red Eyes made fun of you. They always love to do that, but they do not understand who you really are. People always say when you fail, you should just get up and keep trying. That's easier said than done, but it can be done. It might be hard, you might fail a lot, and that failure will probably feel infinite in the moment. Like Sisyphus rolling the boulder. But the truth is, it's impossible to fail forever. Eventually, you will succeed. Maybe a small victory, maybe a big one. I think as long as you keep going, you'll stumble into victory sooner or later. It doesn't have to be immediate or obvious, and hey, you might learn something new on the way. But that's just my 2 cents. Do you want to know a secret? You're really my only listener. There's not that many people around here. But I'm okay with that. You're nice. I wish you good luck. I'm sure we'll speak soon. The player grabs the last key and jumps down, hoping that fall damage was not considered in the development process. Luckily, it wasn't. So they put the keys in the block. The pyramid falls open and reveals the hypno orb. The player walks into it, and the video ends. Well, I guess that my preachy babbling from earlier is kind of irrelevant, but the radio has had me thinking. With the reference to Sisyphus specifically, while it was making its speech, the player was continuously going up a winding mountain only to fall back to the bottom. This can also be interpreted in the rest of the gameplay, making progress only to get sent back to the start, yet never truly giving up. I think that conceptually this is really interesting, and actually makes me think that the radio will eventually betray us. I was thinking back to what I said previously and realized that I'm not entirely correct. I've seen that sometimes those toughest on you are trying to break you for you to rebuild yourself stronger, while often those that speak softly and encourage can be the ones holding the knife to your back. This all just seems to me like the radio is trying to manipulate the player, or maybe manipulate Red Eyes somehow. I'm not quite sure yet, but I think that criticism definitely builds more than coddling and encouragement does. Rapid Eyes number 9 has a description of, "It's boring." The video opens with the last 20 seconds from the previous episode with a red warning sign appearing right after. Then we get this.
Hi. I'm kind of documenting this because I've been working on a game recently.
That isn't the same world as usual. The fog is gone and the creators changed their tune. This isn't a mysterious game, but rather a devlog. The developer seems to be more upbeat and says he has 4 levels to show and transfers into the forest. The forest is not night anymore, and they established that the tutorial had made the scene night while they chose to make it day. The campfire is also burning orange, not purple. They wonder what they're going to add to this area, like enemies or objects or notes like some Slenderman sort of thing. Interesting addition. At the fork, the creator mentions that the right is a dead end and that the left curves to nothing, so they choose to walk through the center. The developer then mentions how they used to live near a forest and that this is a little bit of what inspired them to create this section. Next is the parking lot. This one has significantly more streetlights and sunset skybox. The creator also notes that they were always a little scared of parking lots. The fourth one is the school area. The creator says how it's based off of a school how we went to as a kid. This is where the creator displays the note system, and we can see it in action. The windows show a bright and sunny outside, while the main classroom is emptier. No posters, no food, no drawings, and no creepy monster in the wall. When we get back to the main level, the developer talks about how the levels were kind of random, but just built off of their own experiences. The player eventually gets up to the stone tower and trails off after noticing a radio in midair. However, the developer is confused because they didn't put it there. When they realize that it's their radio, it cuts to black. We now cut to another demo segment. "You goddamn idiot. Hey, no need to be rude. You are constantly interfering with my plans. It's not my fault your plans are stupid. Shut up. Look at what you have done. Things have gone completely wrong. This was not supposed to happen. You have completely subverted my rules." Maybe it's a good thing. Have you considered that? No, you are wrong. Nothing good comes of this. I think you need to stop playing God. Maybe be a little nicer. Shut up! I will not handle your insolence anymore. Why is it my fault that you have to be so mean? Just let the player go. There's no point in keeping them trapped here. No. You are too much a fucking fool to see my plan. You will fix your mistake, or I will fix it for you. Fine. But I'm not happy about it. I do not care. Go. The footage then fades to a black screen where we hear the nature noises from the beginning, but backwards. The player is back in a white orb in the void. They're about to complete their running start from before when all of a sudden the radio exclaims for the player to wait. The player tells the radio to calm down, and the radio apologizes, saying that there's a 4th key that the player needs to find nearby. A key appears to the right of the player, and they wonder how they never saw it before. The player picks it up and runs through the portal, getting back to the rainy main world. I think that this is an interesting twist, likely making my earlier theory irrelevant, but does give us some more ideas and information to consider. Rapid Eyes number 10's description says, "The rain is actually quite nice. Let's hope it's the same for this new voice on the radio." Honestly, I can relate to what they were saying. It's hard sometimes. Interesting. This one starts with the same scene from the last video. He cuts the formalities and walks to the end of the boardwalk. On his way, the radio chimes in to say hi and that she's happy he made it back. She notes how things can get hard to navigate around here and to just push forward. Suddenly, the player gets confused when they see what looks like a branching path from the base of the tower. The player notices the note, but reads it just because the suspense would kill him otherwise. "This is your wake-up call, but you will not listen to it. You never have, you never will." This is a tamer note than usual, as the player notes, but just some gut feeling in me thinks it's not just addressed to our player. The player walks onto the branching path and notices another tower up ahead and a giant boardwalk. If as above, so below is accurate, then as right, so is left, I guess. Wait, that joke doesn't even make sense. The player continues to walk along the main path, avoiding the mirrored split. The radio asks what the player's favorite color is, but then remembers they can't hear the reply. The radio continues to go on about how they can't decide between pink or purple being their favorite. After a bit of talking, the radio remembers something they need to take care of, leaving the player alone with their own thoughts. The player then notes how they see the repeating environmental pattern and hope that he's not missing something. After a bit more walking, he wishes that the radio would come back to life and help his short attention span. That's when the radio buzzes back to life with a new voice. "Sorry, I'm not supposed to be here. My existence in and of itself is wrong. I am the electron in the field. I disappear and reappear whenever physics deems me to be useful. That's so confusing. I hate it so much. Me and you are the same. We're both here because the universe willed it." The player gets confused about this interaction, but they can't dwell on it too long since an island mass comes into view. But after walking onto the island a bit, we get this.
Oh. What is this?
That was a very confusing end. As we've seen, the player seems to see odd things earlier or past what the camera itself can see. So I wonder what it is he thinks he saw. Also, that description about relating to the depressed electron seems to be some sort of symbolism that we may want to remember. Maybe the reason our player doesn't talk during the radio transmissions is because he is talking, just not consciously. Rapid Eyes number 11 has a description that simply states, "I'm sorry." This video opens exactly where the last cut off. We can see that it's an entrance to a cave, with a stop sign in it. Damn OSHA regulations. Going past the sign, the player finds what looks like an elevator, but can't find a button. Luckily, it goes down on its own. The radio tries to say something, but it's completely blocked by static. Eventually, the screen turns black with how dark and far down the player has gone. And a prompt comes up saying F turns on the flashlight, another new feature. The elevator starts to speed up, then it crashes to the ground and the player gets put into an animation where the radio is on with static, and his flashlight is on too. Trying to touch the radio results in it smoking. After staring at a stalactite dripping water to the floor, he eventually sees a note. Unfortunately, getting closer reveals that the note is on a wooden beam, coincidentally with a noose over it. "You deserve this place." The player sighs, looking from the note to the noose, and moves forward with a new, more somber attitude. Another beam ahead also has a noose. After going farther, they find a locker from the school with a dirtier texture. Going further, they find a dead end with a table and phone ringing. Picking it up results in the teal voice from before. "Hello?" "Hello, who is this?" "It's me." "Oh, hi, sweetie, I need some help." "What's wrong, Grammy?" "Your dad is sick. I think... he said he's not feeling well. I think he needs help." "Well, he's probably working hard. Don't worry about him. He's probably fine." I'm trying to call your grandma." "I'm telling Grammy, it's okay. He probably just went to take a nap." "I'm not sure." "It's going to be okay. Grandma will be home soon, okay? Do you need help with anything else?" No. "I'll talk to you later then. Have a good night." I should have called someone. I think that we delved deeply into his personal demons. The ones that keep you awake at night, the ones that lead you to dark thoughts. I think the somber response from the note saying that the creator belonged there shows that the creator does think he deserves this. And now we seem to have a cause. Continuing on to Rapid Eyes number 12, the description says, "You're not perfect." The video starts in a blank room with a brick roof and cyan text saying dev_1.png. The image seems to either be brightening or having its contrast boosted through the first few seconds, and then it stops, showing the full blank room. The screen fades to the next image marked dev_2.png, seemingly the same room with an added wall. Cyan text appears stating, "Beginnings of something awful." dev_3.png fades on screen and shows a more zoomed in shot of the room with a table added. The next PNG shows a note added to a different wall. The screen then fades to dev_footage_1.mp4, showing, presumably a player, going to a note and interacting with it. It's empty. They turn to look at the table and the footage cuts. The next image shows a hallway next to the table. Creations of hate, not love. The next image shows the other side of the new doorway. Dev_7 shows columns added to the new room, as well as another hard-to-discern object. Dev8 shows an added note. Dev_footage2 goes on the same path as before, displaying the empty note and moving on to the other areas. The last note is also empty when they finally get to it. They back out of the columns, and with some awkward movement patterns, backtrack. Now a radio sits upon the table. Red text shows up, but instead of red eyes, it's you. Why do you keep sending your radios here? I just wanted to hear what you were up to. You are a distraction from my work. No need to be so rude, Red. I like what you're making here. It could use some work, though. What? Well, first of all, it kind of feels familiar. Like the brick. You could make them a different color to make it more unique. You should make them, like, green instead. Green? I do not want your fucking feedback. You should not be here. You are a distraction and nothing else. I have removed you and you keep coming back. This is the final time. You can't just ignore me forever. Red walks backward and the screen fades to dev_9.png, displaying a partially translucent, partially red pyramid. It's difficult to make out the text on the pyramid at the moment, but the cyan text says, "You should listen to her." Dev10.png shows the table is now gone. Dev_footage3.mp4 shows us the room again, and we can see the pyramid's text actually says placeholder in red letters. Red walks into the second room and sees the table with the radio on it, and we get this. After the fade to black, we can see a final scene of the radio, smoking from its circuits on the table. That animated segment was just so good. I think that there was a lot of this video to be left for interpretation, and that clearly shows in the comment section. A lot of people seem to resonate with this episode and the series. It's just incredible so far. But I did say so far. We're not done yet. I also like how the description, after watching the video, can be a double entendre in a way. If it's Red saying this to the radio, it's in an angered tone displaying their views and hatred to the radio for being relaxed and hindering progress. While if it's the radio saying this, then we see it in a more sympathetic light. Red isn't perfect, yet their drive for perfection that they see is making them agitated and explosive in nature. Rapid Eyes number 13 is a description saying, "It gets worse each time, and still I feel driven. I don't know why." We open up on the phone from 11. The player sighs, but just walks back the way they came. The player eventually makes their way back to the radio and keeps trying to turn it back on. They're stuck, and they don't have anyone to talk to or listen to. The player eventually finds an opening, assumedly to the void. They're out of the cave now, and we can even look around the outside of it. Then they run into the darkness. They start to talk about serious matters about themselves, how they talk a lot and try to make jokes, but they know that that annoys some people. Then they think about things like people wondering why he keeps putting himself through this and what he's really achieving. I am technically skipping a lot of the details about his character, but letting 5 straight minutes of him talking play would, in my opinion, not fit what I'm doing here. But I urge you after this video, watch all of Rapid Eyes. It doesn't take too long, and it's actually really enjoyable. The moments in this series are beautiful, serene, depressing, and entertaining all at once. Just watch the series after this. Don't worry about unraveling any lore or pausing to look at minute details. Just watch and listen. Because I think this project is an incredible canvas that you can see yourself in no matter what. After his monologue, he tries to lighten the mood by talking about the void and how long he's been walking. A distraction. But then he finds himself with a flashlight prompt in this dark gray room holding a walkie-talkie. The player finds a note in a dead-end hall with a depiction of an eye in a weird way. Find all 3 levers to open. The player guesses that the eye must be a door and is confused with the seemingly friendly note. The player wonders about the walkie-talkie, so tries left-clicking it and says hello. The walkie-talkie responds back, mimicking his input. The player tries again, only to get his greeting back. This heavily unnerves the player, but then he finds a lever to distract himself from the creepy walkie-talkie. The player tries one more test, only to hear his own staticky voice replay. The player tries one last time, and the sound of the player's voice seems to emanate from somewhere else, severely creeping out the creator. They move forward a few steps and the flashlight goes out, leaving them in the darkness. Afraid, he looks around but changes his mood when he finds radio. "Hi, I'm so happy to see you. My very soul began withering away in your absence. But now because of you, I feel beauty and love. I love this place. The darkness is so homely. The hate. We should probably just give up. The hate is too powerful. There's really no point. We should probably just give up. If we stay here together, then the hate will have won the battle." Wouldn't that be fun? The radio starts quickly spewing those same few lines uncharacteristically negatively. The radio then apologizes. "My system's set to true, which should have been false. Oh well, I gave it a shot. Don't ever say I didn't try." A deep humming starts to play as a reddish light glows. We can see that it's rising as a lanky body appears from the darkness. Now illuminated a bit, the player realizes that that wasn't radio, and runs as fast as they can. As the player runs, they can hear weird screams along with loud footsteps of the pursuing monster. They attempt to hide behind a stone wall and wait for the monster to pass by. The player realizes the weird shrieks he heard behind him must have been the voice from radio. The shrill voice of the radio was a mimic of his very own. The player becomes a mixture of terrified and frustrated. The player finds a new note as well. There is no way out of here. An eternal hell. The player uses the walkie-talkie after they go into the hall they thought the monster went into, and realizes that the other walkie-talkie is the monster, so they can use it to find them via noise. The player avoids the monster and finds a door to open and walks into an enclosed room. In the center is an orange locker. But as he explores it a bit more, that locker turns into a yellow flower from the forest area. After noticing this, he does a very quick spin and it doesn't change, but after slowly turning around and back, it becomes the placeholder pyramid. This really confuses the player since they haven't seen it show up yet. After turning around again, it becomes a lever. He pulls the lever and it turns back, noticing that it won't change. The player then continues to explore the halls. After a bit of walking, they find the monster, which starts to give chase again. The player runs back to the room where he was previously and uses it as a safe room from the monster. The lever from before is now a stop sign. The player turns around and leaves the safe room to find the solution. After coming to a crossroad, the player uses the walkie to determine which hall the monster is down, and avoids that hall. After a bit, his flashlight breaks again, and along with a lot of swearing, he panics to turn it back on. Looking at the halls, they notice a lot of dead ends, and one of them even has a note in it. Why do you still keep trying? There's no point, no objective, just give up already. Everybody wants you to. The player gets annoyed, but also notes that they feel desensitized to it. He's trying to not let it affect him. After finding the lever, he decides to scope out the other dead ends to try and find the path he should follow after, guessing that if he pulls the lever, the monster will appear. After he pulls the lever, the monster, of course, appears, and our protagonist sprints to the corridor. As the monster runs, his shift key starts to give out, and he hears the sound of an orb in the distance. It gives him the hope to keep running, and he sees a pink orb, but rushes past the note on the wall, when all of a sudden, the monster stops. Looking back, it's kneeling, falling to the floor. The player reluctantly approaches and talks to the monster. Her light, it weakens me. I am just a false copy, but you came to speak to me as I lay upon the ground. After tricking you, scaring you, chasing you, fine. Here are some thoughts from a monster. What is life without love, without caring, without empathy? These are all great feelings, and yet I constantly find myself wondering the opposite. What is life without logic, without hate, without creation? These things too are essential. You and I are the only ones in this place who can understand. Me? I understand because I was created wrong. I was made with a heart that feels hate and a mind that feels love. You? You're human. You understand these emotions, feelings, and actions intrinsically. You are unlike the things that exist in this world. You are a balance. And yet, love and hate attempt to pull you in different directions. One attempting to craft their torment, and the other sending out her signals to defend you. I do not mean to say that love is bad, but as human, you cannot deny the truth that love does not work without hate. Behind every hateful action, there should be love, to empathize with those you oppose. Behind every love, there should be hate, to defend the ones you care about. And yet the raw hate and love cannot understand this. I apologize for chasing you. It was in my nature to do so. To repent, I lend you advice. The hate, they will make you tear out your own heart and cast it into an entropic state. But perhaps they are not as powerful as you might think they are. Imperfections in the unholy design. I must warn you, however, if you make the wrong choices, you'll never wake up from this nightmare. Ignoring the note, the player runs into the hypno-orb.
What?
I will admit, I don't know what just happened. But that orb was pink, Radio's color, and Radio somehow weakened the evil copy. Likely made by Red, or possibly is Red speaking through Radio's voice. Difficult to tell. The last video is Divergence, with the description, it has split. Two streams run in parallel. They are opposite, with the same destination in mind. The video is a minute long and shows a clock ticking. However, at 30 seconds, the screen turns red. At 40 seconds, it turns pink. At 45, it turns red. 49, back to purple. 51, red. 53, pink. At 55, it turns back to normal. A lot of guesses are in the comments section regarding possible codes and ideas, but nothing that comes out with an answer or even a process to decode. Before we go with a full-blown recap, I want to look at some other things first. In the playlist section of the channel, there is a playlist specifically for music from the videos. That has screenshots and depictions that are actually very interesting. I won't consider them too much since it's just the music and the descriptions just pose questions or a statement about what happened in the video the music was used. I like this thumbnail of the monster though. Super sick. Conversation in Nowhere also has an awesome thumbnail. Also, to those of you who have been around a while, know I do not like looking at them. But yes, this channel does have a Discord. There are theories and stuff in the channels, but I don't feel it's necessary. But I check them out regardless, because people get mad if I don't, so whatever. Luckily this time the server was actually largely focused on unfiction projects like this. There was actually this one rapid eyes theory that I found very interesting, which I'll cover first. Discord user Izen put out a theory that's more literal than metaphysical. They point out how radio and red seem to represent the differences between love and hate. They think that red, cyan, and pink are all alters of the player to express different beliefs. They also use a lot of info regarding BPD, so I will try to be faithful as possible to their explanation. They believe that the game started as someone who was happily making the game, but it became corrupted and pessimistic, creating red. Pink somehow inserted itself as well. Likely being the love that created the game versus the hate that soon enveloped it, from some outside trauma. Cyan is some trauma catalyst that holds the unfortunate memories, while red attempts to protect the system from the player, unlike the radio who tries to embrace the player. They also point out the disoriented state of the player, often forgetting things like dessert, school, or other subjects, and also being confused and out of it sometimes. I think it's interesting, but I don't entirely agree with it. I'm not so scientific with my thoughts on it, but rather more literal. I don't think that the entities are lying to us at all. I do have to give some credence to the amnesia theory, since from my view, the creator made the game in the story. I agree that red and radio figures symbolize two different emotions, but I don't think it's just hate and love. I think instead, it's pessimism and optimism. They show more than just one feeling or emotion. They display a mindset. I would say that cyan is also closer to being something like nihilism. To tackle the easiest first, cyan. Cyan in its few appearances doesn't show a side to anything. It just contemplates its own existence and finds it annoying, as it sees itself as pointless in a way. When radio comes into red's testing, red gets angry and cyan just says it'd be easier to follow the instructions because what's the point in pushing back? Which leads to what I believe to be an overall message of this series. What's the point? The question that lurks in so many people's minds. When they fail, what's the point in continuing? These are assumedly AI, or just something that embodies an emotion. It's in a computer, it's logic-based. Do you know what happens when a computer fails? Unless coded otherwise, it gives up. It does something else. It changes course. That is, unless a code... It does something else. It changes course. That is, unless a human coded it to continue retrying over and over and over again. I think that our protagonist lost their father, and blames themselves for it while they were working on their game. This game was a passion of theirs, but it would ultimately fail. They weren't good enough to make it fun. They weren't good enough to flesh it out. They weren't good enough to go beyond the tutorial. They weren't good enough to make a game. But they kept trying. They continued to fail, but they kept going, understanding that they are not the best programmer. Red does not see the logic in this. If someone does something better than you, give up, you're not qualified. That is Red's mentality. However, radio is more optimistic and compassionate, almost to a fault. And while likely not understanding this human spirit to continue no matter the failure, will aid in any way they can. It's pure empathy without the backbone to stand up to the hate of Red. Let's consider that final monologue from the monster. Love does not work without hate. But when they only go by the logic of their one ideology, they are opposites. Red, or hate, doesn't directly talk to or see the player. They never use empathy to approach the player and understand their adversary. While radio, or love, lacks the backbone or ability to truly stop them. All talk and little actual action compared to Red's constant action but no talking. I think we can follow the philosophy of yin and yang. One can't exist without the other, but what would happen if they didn't work together to maintain a balance? It's an interesting premise, but I don't think we have everything. From a literal perspective, the developer was inadequate in skill, but was always gluttonous with big dreams in school. Later in life, he became green-eyed or envious to those with skill, but continues regardless with his love of wanting to make a game, but hatred of his failures. Somehow, the game has taken these two emotions and sees them separately rather than as a single belief. Well, that was Rapid Eyes. I urge you to watch the series yourself. It is incredible. The creator clearly has a lot of passion, and I think this project is brimming with it. In the Discord, the creator said that they put the project on a hiatus to focus on some other stuff. But I hope to be able to check back up on this someday. So yeah, I think the creator has made a really interesting unfiction project, and I look forward to the future. The channel will be, of course, linked below if you want to check it out, and I highly recommend it. But I'm going to take the rest of this time for myself. If you enjoyed this video, I recommend these ones just like it. And if you're into this style of video, I recommend these ones that cover games instead. If you're just curious and have time to waste, check out these videos. If you enjoy the others, then consider subscribing. I don't like to just cover these types of projects, I like variety. So yeah, if you want to catch my streams, sorry, there's no true schedule at the moment. I just kind of post on my community tab when they will be. Check the community tab often, since I hold a lot of polls and updates there. Also, one last thing, because of how I record a lot of these scripts, sometimes my ideas end up being faster than my video production. Also, something I mentioned in a previous community post when actually announcing the Five Nights at Freddy's Simulator Origins video that happened on the 31st, which go check that out if you haven't seen it. There will be a 10K subscribers special. What it will be is actually something that a couple people have been wanting for a little while. A Discord. I've been trying to come up with ideas about it and trying to create something, because a couple of you guys want to be able to interact more, and I think it would also be good so that you guys can catch announcements and see stuff I'm working on. So if you want to see that, then please do subscribe. I want to make it the 10K subscriber milestone. However, if we don't really reach it before the end of the year, I may release it early as a maybe Christmas gift. I don't know. Anyway, that's enough rambling. Comments, criticism, and suggestions are always welcome, and I will see you all later. Arrivederci.